Hey everybody, how's it going? Today, I bring you one rather special and very unique treat. A detailed, in-depth look at the 1949 Pontiac Chieftain Deluxe two-door sedan. And this is going to be a detailed, in-depth view of the Chieftain. We'll start it up, show the engine, get an exhaust clipping over the performance data, and show you a bunch of the unique aspects of the interior as well as exterior. And I'd like to give a big thanks and special shout out to All City Auto Sales, located in Indian Trail, North Carolina, for allowing me to come out and film this beautiful and unique 1949 Pontiac Chieftain Deluxe. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and start her up, let her run. The exterior color is an original color combination of sage green over Wellington and features an all-original gray cloth interior. And like many cars of the era, the Chieftain also came standard with a push-button start. All you have to do is put the key in the dash and turn the power on. Then off to the left-hand side, you'll see the button. Just put your foot on the brake and hit it to start. Beautiful. Extremely quiet startup. Simple manual worm and roller steering, and a large, thin-rimmed and contoured steering wheel with a chrome-accented horn ring. Four-wheel hydraulically assisted drum brakes, and this particular Chieftain actually came with the optional GM Hydromatic Drive automatic gearbox. It's actually a 4-speed automatic gearbox that first came out in 1948 with low gear selection and reverse all the way over to the right. It's definitely a very unique and innovative transmission when it originally came out. There's no parking gear, you just leave the vehicle in neutral and activate the parking brake. To go into reverse, you have to be at full stop and then just drag it all the way down. And while the vehicle doesn't have hazards, it does come with a turn signal. It doesn't show any directional errors or anything, but just shows up a little red light up in the dash just to let you know it's on, whether it be for the left or the right. So we're going to flip on the headlamps. This vehicle also came with a set of optional fog lamps, which is pretty unique, and a pretty rare option for the day. Go ahead and roll the windows down, laminated glass all the way around, and we're going to check out the exterior, shall we? The 1940s were a very interesting and influential time period for the automotive market. World War II was in full swing for the first half of the decade and really affected how cars were made and bought for a number of years during and after. Although many manufacturers introduced new models around 1941, all civilian auto production was stopped by February 1942 to fully aid the government and military for war effort. It wasn't until 1946 that new model production for civilians began in full swing once again, fed by a thirsty consumer market for new cars. Majority of cars were carried over from models made before the war, dubbed the pre-war cars, with facelifts and modest improvements over the following years with new variants and styles to keep things interesting. It wasn't until 1949 that manufacturers all across the board started introducing whole new model lineups for the first time in nearly 10 years. This meant that manufacturers brought their A-game in a fight for survival. The models introduced would then carry into the vast variety and artistic styling that was ever apparent in the 1950s. Pontiac was no exception. The Chieftain, all new for 1949, rides on a new A-body platform with all new sheet metal, features, and a variety of body styles that included 2- and 4-door sedans, A short-roofed two-door sedan with sliding rear windows versus the sedan's roll-down, also known as the Club Coupe, a business coupe without a rear seat, and last but not least, a two-door convertible. Standard wheels were 15-inch steel wheels with your choice of polished stainless steel wheel covers, all wrapped in 15 by 5.5-inch 4-ply white wall tires. Brakes are 11-inch Bendix hydraulic drums on all four wheels with a rear-mounted emergency brake. The front suspension is independent with coil springs, while the rear has semi-elliptic leaf springs. One of the downsides, though, of straight-eight cars in general is the size of the engine and materials needed make it heavier in front than a more modern V8. It also increases the need for the characteristically large front ends of cars of this era. It was cheap to build, though, it was reliable, and had adequate enough power for luxury on a budget. It was never built to be a sports car, but with a relatively light rear end, one can imagine the ease of breaking out the tail end of trying to hurry around a tight corner too quickly. As I mentioned, styling was the biggest piece of news for 49, even more so with the Deluxe trim. The Deluxe was accented by unique chrome accents and flares going across the sides, as well as polished stainless steel rock guards and a chrome protectant for the gas cap. Polished trim wraps around the windows as well as the entire greenhouse, with one of the unique flares below the rear windows. A few other accessories are the rain guards above the windows, as well as the channels that follow the roofline, flowing into a full-length sun visor that mounts above the windshield for easy removal if one desires. Pontiac also had a very unique styling cue of having a wraparound split windshield, gave it a little bit of extra character. It was obviously more polished than a mainstream Chevrolet, but still more modest than the higher-priced Buicks and Oldsmobiles. You can have the car in either a 6-cylinder or Pontiac's Silver Streak 8, as well as your choice of two different transmissions, a standard Synchro Mesh 3-speed manual gearbox or the Hydromatic Drive automatic transmission. Interestingly enough, Pontiac was the cheapest car available in America at the time that had the option of the Hydromatic, and it definitely showed as more than 2/3 of Pontiacs sold that particular year were sold with the automatic. In fact, the 3 millionth Pontiac was sold that year, so it was a pretty pivotal year for the brand. Overall length is 202.5 inches riding on a 120-inch wheelbase shared with the Pontiac Streamliner. The width is 75.7 inches and the height is 63.25 inches. Total curb weight, depending on your options, is around 3,500 pounds. So we're going to pop the hood. As touched on previously, this Chieftain comes with the optional 248 cubic inch Silver Streak side valve L-head or flathead straight 8-cylinder with a change-over cam. A straight 8 engine by design has a very low inert vibration. It allows it to run at a lower RPM while idling than a typical overhead valve V8. I believe the Silver Streak idles around 450 RPM. This leads to a very quiet engine whether inside or out, especially when combined with a large exhaust manifold. Back then, the quieter the engine was, the more quality it evoked. While essential drivetrains didn't change in the previous year, compression was increased via new high compression heads to 6.5 to 1. Yielded a total horsepower output of 106 at 3,800 RPM and 194 pound-feet of torque at 2,200 RPM. There were few other changes aside from aiding cooling efficiency and durability. Unfortunately, efficiency with power was never a strong point with the straight 8s. The side valve design limited smooth intake and exhaust gas flow, which really hindered it from high horsepower. They were ultimately outdated by the modern overhead valve V8 in the 1950s. This car retains its original 6-volt battery system with a negative ground rather than the positive ground seen in other 6-volt cars of the day. It's also really cool to see that all of the original wiring and style has been retained and maintained over the years. It even has the original windshield washer bottle and under the hood light. Very cool. You really have to appreciate the creativity of automakers and designers of this era. Cars back then didn't have a vast array of electronic features to set models apart like we do today. They did it with style and convenience features. Overall, the interior boasted luxury while being affordable and durable. Build quality was great with unique stitched two-tone cloth door panels accented in polished stainless steel and also featured a vinyl padded armrest. Matching the dash is a gunmetal gray painted window trim that surrounds all of the interior glass. Not to mention, all of your standard manual accessories include manual vent windows. The overall interior is styled specifically for the Deluxe trim and featured gray wool broadcloth upholstery on front and rear seats, finished off with button-tufted seat backs. The bench seat up front is adjustable by the chrome lever on the side, it's extremely comfortable, and slides forward and backward. Down below, the Body by Fisher monogram, along with polished stainless steel entry guards, and the floor in this particular model is a combination of rubber and carpet up front, which is a pretty common thing for that day, as well as full carpet in the rear for a little bit more of a luxury touch for the rear passengers. It's all tied up with a very glitzy dash with plenty of extra chrome and polished trim, a part of the Deluxe package, and a bunch of modern amenities for the day. I just think it's one of the coolest things in the world to be able to find a car like this that's so amazingly well preserved. It gives a fantastic look to what the car truly looked like back in the day, a true time capsule.
So let's go and see if she sounds. Extremely smooth. So we're going to shut her up. Beautifully solid panels. The features list is pretty basic, but pretty high end for the day. It did come standard with an AM radio, located front and center, with bass treble adjustment located on the turn dial here, your memory preset stations, as well as your manual tuning. Your speaker is a single one, mounted up in the dash with a decorative speaker grille, and a unique analog clock mounted front and center. There is a single ashtray mounted up in the dash as well. The dash, painted two-tone, gives a nice contrast to the interior, as well as that unique Pontiac beveled split window windshield. It did also come with the optional vacuum-assisted wipers that can be adjusted for speed and to let the pressure out. Also, another pretty rare option was a manually dimming rearview mirror, just by clicking that little tab back and forth. Fuse box relay located down below, as well as two manual levers for the fresh air vents down below. Since the vehicle didn't have fresh air, going down the road, you can always open them up and allow some circulation to come through. High beam dimmer switch down below, and your lighter located next to the ignition switch. Up top of the steering column are the controls for your heater, blower, changing the different zones, whether you want to defrost, as well as adjusting the temperature or level of hotness, so to speak, from low, medium, and high. The gauge cluster is also nice and comprehensive, accented in chrome. Speedometer front and center, of course, with your odometer and the Silver Streak logo. And off to the left, your fuel, battery level. And to the right, your oil pressure, as well as water temperature. And now, while I really don't have a light to demonstrate this right now, this little guide viewfinder mounted up in the dash. Cars back in the day that came with these optional sunshades, it often made it difficult to see the traffic lights when you came up to an intersection. So what that does is it changes the angle of the light coming in, so all you have to do is look through the viewfinder and you can see the stoplights up above. Alrighty. Go ahead and shut her down. And we're going to check out the back seat. To gain entry, all you have to do is just flip it up, yielding a very roomy back seat. It was said that some of these two-door sedans and coupe counterparts actually had just as much, if not a little bit more room than the four-door sedans. and it's as simple as that. The back seat, as you would expect, is extremely comfortable. Heavy amounts of padding. Feels like a big couch. Grip handles on the back of the seat. Interior illumination. Coat hooks mounted up top, as well as little cloth handles, so you can more easily hoist yourself up out of the back seat. Nice and convenient. The textured cloth trim traipsing into the back, as well as little vinyl padded armrests with integrated ashtrays. And as mentioned before in the two-door sedan, the windows rolled down in the back versus sliding back. Alrighty. So we're going to check out the rest of the vehicle, shall we? To gain access to the trunk, flip open this little chrome cap, turn it, and lift. As you'd expect, the trunk space is absolutely massive, with your spare tire, bias ply, mounted off to the right. Integrated cargo lamp, which is a factory accessory. The vehicle's original jack, which is also quite neat in its original box, and a bunch of really neat literature. Just figured I'd show all this because it's so neat to see all this. It brings great history to cars. It's also a pretty roomy glove box, also with an accessory light.
A very unique car and a real time capsule into the car culture of the late 1940s. Cars like this should always be preserved as a history lesson to any car enthusiast. It's amazing how far we've come, but also begs the question, what will it all be like in the next 50 to 60 years?
Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed this detailed look at the 1949 Pontiac Chieftain. Be sure to stay tuned next time. There's a lot more where that came from. Take care everybody.